Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team.
Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years, 6, 3 months.
This morning is all about leadership and influence. Good morning. What a great honor and privilege it is again here to be with you today on the Inside Show. And this morning we are discussing a topic entitled Everything Rises and Falls on Leadership. There's almost nothing in this world that does not stand on leadership and the abilities and the qualities of leadership. You need leadership in your household, in your home. You need leadership in your company. You need leadership in a boardroom. You need leadership if you're involved with sports in a sports club. You need leadership at church. You need leadership as a president or mayor or a MP or a councillor. You need also personal leadership. Every single person. There is not an individual that does not need leadership skills. Everybody leads in one way or the other. There is not a person that should not have leadership skills. And sometimes you think you're not leading, but you are. And today we're going to really have a great discussion here around leadership. There are 3 categories of people, and I wonder, you must think in which category you fall. There's 80% of people in society without reflecting on the meaning of life. 80%. Then you find 14% of society ask questions about life, and that's where it stays. They just ask questions. But there is only 2% in society that's really critical towards the approach of life. Only 2%. And I tell you, you're going to enjoy the show so much here today around leadership and the qualities of leadership and how important it is to lead. It doesn't matter where it is. Today with me in the studio here, I've got somebody by the name of Mantikoe with us here. He's really a great guy. Mantikoe is executive and management coach. He's an entrepreneur and also describe himself as a business consultant by day. He's a philosopher by night. He's a student with an interest in leadership, politics, and also sociology. A warm welcome, Mantikoe. Thank you so much for being here and honoring us with your presence. I know we're going to have fun here in the studio around leadership.
Thank you so much, Doc. It's good to be here, and welcome to everyone as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to discuss a few things in the studio here today around moral discipline and moral attachment and moral autonomy. You might not know what those legs are standing for, but I promise you, you will be able to interpret it when we're done with it. And you can place yourself in one of these categories around leadership and the technique and style of leadership. We're going to talk a little about leadership in South Africa, and we're going to talk about leadership in the world. We're going to talk about leadership in our communities and so on and so on. But what we need is good leadership. I also have with me here my executive assistant, Father Ali Joseph, with me here today in the studio here today. A warm welcome to you. He is also not just my assistant, he's also a theologian, a man that was for many years in ministry and understand ministry and leadership just as much as we do. A warm welcome to you, Father Ali.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you for this opportunity, Doc.
Praise the Lord. Let's kick off, Mantikoe. Talk to us about moral discipline. What is moral discipline exactly?
You know, Doc, if we're going to talk about moral discipline, then we first need to start with what morals are. And morals are the governing principles that we utilize that governs our everyday behavior. How we execute ourselves in the world, how we act, how we go about things. It is driven by a set of principles that we live out by. And now, if we understand that there's this morals that drive our behavior, the question is, how do you then instill them in yourself? How do you go about them? How do you set them for yourself? And that's where now we start saying things like, the moment I start to understand what I do and how I behave, how consistent am I in it?
Before we unpack the moral discipline in a much bigger way, and I know you are loaded with information here to share with us here today around moral discipline, can you just explain to us in layman's terms, how does moral discipline influence you as a person, at least your house, your sports club, or anything, before we unpack it in a more deeper sense?
So, Doc, moral discipline is about the word discipline. Who I am consistently every day drives that. We always find ourselves in situations where it questions the way we interact, it questions the way that we respond. And that becomes a point where moral discipline now starts to become a guiding principle in one's life. Am I going to act differently today as I did yesterday because the situation is different today as opposed to yesterday, And if we have to drive it home a little bit more, if at home we're saying that in our house we will never beat children, we will talk to them, what happens when the child comes after curfew and your emotions are heightened? How do you then stick to that moral discipline? Do you allow your emotions to take over and master you, or do you master your own emotions and stay within your guiding principles? And I think that's the foundations of moral discipline. And we'll begin to explore more in terms of how does that fit into leadership, because at the end of the day, it is moral discipline that defines who we are and how we interact with everyone around us. It defines what we see, how we engage, and what we actually authentically state to people as a produce of who you are. And that, for me, is moral discipline in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Father Ali, your contribution towards moral discipline before we let Mantikoe off the hook here.
Yeah, moral discipline, sometimes people think it's this huge concept that nobody can really understand, or nobody can really exercise and practice. But morality truly is like knowing what is right and knowing what is good, and having the moral discipline to actually doing what is good and doing what is right. So it's right action, it's right knowing, right acting. And so whenever you are in a situation where you have to choose between right and wrong, even if the lights are off, morality is still in operation. You have to choose whether what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong, even when nobody sees you.
Yeah.
And this is where the discipline comes in. It's like what you said, like when the child comes in after curfew. Nobody sees you, but you have to choose in that moment. It's like on the sports field, in the boardroom, when you make a business deal, when you decide on policy in government, when in church you have to make a decision. It's what is right, you need to do it, and that is what morality really is.
Within the 21st century, if you look at leadership, is there still moral discipline? Really, when you look at the way people are doing stuff, there's almost nothing. The first time when I traveled Africa, I think that's where moral discipline comes in. People push you to a point. Let me give you a light-hearted example. This is a very light-hearted example. So one of the very senior leaders, he lives in Durban.
Yeah.
He preached in Botswana.
Okay.
And so on his way out, they allowed everybody through at the airport to catch a flight out of Botswana back to South Africa. I mean, it's just a stone throw away. Yes. But there was another engagement later this afternoon that he had to be, and then the guy, he handed his passport over. The guy looked through the passport, and the guy said, "There's one leaf missing." So we went back, and he went to go sit, and he started counting the leaves, the pages in the passport. And then he handed back. He said, "No, everything is there." It's only later on that he realized that he had to put money in the passport.
Yeah.
That was the leaf that was missing. And
Absolutely.
listen, he's a preacher. Now, that moral discipline, sometimes the test is severe around the moral discipline within leadership. And I know you burn about this leg that about moral discipline and this model that you follow about moral discipline. Share with us today.
Correct. So for me, the moral discipline is not necessarily who you say you are. It's more about who you consistently become and do. And I think that speaks to that particular situation that you refer to. It's, as a pastor, what do I do in that situational ethics. How do I respond? And moral discipline says that it's not necessarily how easy it is when everything is nice to do the right thing. It speaks about how challenging it is to do the right thing in the midst of a situation that is not favorable. And that's where we now need to step into how we lead ourselves as individuals. Because every day when we lead ourselves, we're faced with compromising situations. You get onto the road, the JMPD stops you.
You tell me.
I mean, they stop you, they look at your papers, they look at the car, they see everything is nice, they turn to you, they're like, yeah, no, man, do something. The first thing you're going to ask, you already know because they're insinuating, but moral discipline says to you that at that point in time, the moment you start acting contrary to who you are compromising your character. And it doesn't matter how small the situation may be. What it means is that you are introducing a leg of compromise that will then begin to deteriorate in terms of the character building platform or development plan that you have been on. And that, for me, is why moral discipline is important, because it's so easy to look at a small situation and say, it's one of those.
I listen, I hear what you say. How does that, if somebody on the other side watching us here today will sit there and say, okay, what change will that make into my leadership technique and my leadership style? How important that is if I don't stay disciplined within moral ethics?
No, correct. So moral discipline goes hand in hand with integrity, if you think about it. So the moment I start to open up that window, what it means is that my reasoning skills begin to entertain more negative things in my life, the things that I'm not prone to. And sometimes if you grew up in a strict home, they will tell you that these are the rules of the house. It does not change. There is no gray area. It's black or white. And the reason why that is instilled in us is so that we never give room to anything that can compromise who we are. And the moment you allow something small to creep in, what it means, there's a flaw in my character somewhere. And when there is a flaw in your character, the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, why did I respond the way that I did? Did I respond because of the situation, or did I respond because that's who I'm trying to be or move away from? And I know it's very small when you think about it, but the moment you don't reflect on it, you start becoming part of the 84% that you were referring to. We just go about life for the sake of winning every day, for the sake of being successful every day. But then the question becomes, what does it mean to be truly successful in your own life?
Yeah, like in that moral discipline, I'm going to give you opportunity now, Father Ali. But in that moral discipline, it becomes like a place of acceptance.
Yes.
And if you make some adjustments, then you don't expect a specific quality within leadership, because now it becomes a norm.
Yeah.
It becomes a norm that bribery is involved. It becomes a norm that there's a flaw that you have to pay if you want a contract. It becomes a norm. And slowly but surely we break down on South Africa, isn't it so? There's compromise. You go ahead, Vadali.
Yes. I've always said that whenever I stayed for long, protracted periods outside of South Africa, I miss home. And whenever I come back to South Africa, the first thing I did was get into a plane that is called that with the branding of the South Africa on the tail of the plane. Not that it's there nowadays, but it's coming back because I felt home here. I felt at home here, and I still feel at home here. But I always said that if we do not encourage people to become part of the 2% of society that critically approaches life, that asks the question, why should we normalize corruption? Why should we normalize, eroding our moral principles? It's like, I'm a purist when it comes to football. And I recently got married, and I'm just putting it in there. And my wife is not necessarily a football fan. She doesn't watch football, but sometimes she has to begrudgingly watch a football match with me. And Doc would know that sometimes I get really into football, but I say to them that sometimes people don't understand if the referee starts the game, the rules must be clear. So moral degradation and moral corruption, it's like changing the rules of the game while you're playing the game.
Yeah.
And in the end, nobody has the same point of reference. And this is what is happening when you start compromising on your moral values. And I'm not sitting here today on my moral soapbox and saying that like you should do right, you should prevent wrong, or should avoid wrong. I'm saying that like you should critically approach life.
Yes.
You should we're encouraging people to become part of the 2% of society that actually sits and says, no, I'm not gonna do this because everybody does it. I'm not gonna just do this and like think about it. I'm gonna critically approach this and see who am I, who are the people that I share the society with, and like how can we make it better? Because sometimes people would say to you like, man, like society is so big, there's nothing I can do.
Yes.
Like, yeah, the government is so big, there's nothing I can do. Yeah, but like there's something that you can do, because like Invictus, you are the master of your own ship. You if you are comfortable within your own skin, if you can stand up, in the presence of people that are not like you need to stand up and stand accounted for you being there, because you can't just take up space and steal other people's oxygen. Yeah.
Mantikoe, before you get in there, on the moral discipline, in the private sector, with CEOs and MDs, how strong is that in the private sector?
So, with my experience, I think one of the things that I do whenever I engage senior management is question them on their values. What are your core values? Because there is a correlation between the core values that a person lives by and the organizational values. And I think that's always a starting point for me. And most of the time, I start to see that a leader within the private sector, the first thing that they do is instill their own values in an organizational culture or behavior. And by that, what they're trying to translate is that there is a cascading effect to the moral discipline that I have and the loyalty that I breed to those that look up to me. And it speaks to one of these, one of the things that Father Ali said, and I was thinking as you were saying that if you think about a car, the moment you start to see an icon blink, or pop up on your dashboard, it questions you whether to say, if I prioritize my car, I will go get it checked out. If I'm okay with where it is and it's drivable and it's not affecting me or nothing of the sort, I'll continue driving it until it becomes a serious problem. All right? However, if you think about it, any point in time, there is a risk attached to your car. There's a risk on the road, and that risk can materialize in material risk, meaning that I can be involved in an accident, to be the cause of an accident, and that could affect multiple lives. Now, what I've seen that leaders do is that they always keep in check what they do on a daily basis. They always introspect on whether they were living out their true values. And that for me speaks about how transformational CEOs become whenever they step into an organization, especially if it's in a big need.
Because one person's moral ethics can either bring the whole organization in dispute. Or not. Now, just on a car, let's use brands that everybody knows, like the BMW brand, the Mercedes brand, Renault brand, or Kia brand. It doesn't matter what brand it is. Haval these days. There's an integrity around the brand. And that's exactly what the selling point of the brand. Would you agree on that point?
Correct.
It's exactly the selling point. So what we're saying here around leadership is that if you stand for integrity and moral discipline, you sell a brand. And now, with that in mind, bringing that to church, it's the same thing with Christ, Jesus Christ, as the brand. So you stand as an apostle, or as a pastor, or as an evangelist, or as a teacher. Which one didn't use there? I can't, but it's a fivefold ministry. I can't recall which one I didn't use. But if you look at the fivefold ministry, in essence, for quality leadership, the moral ethics are vital, because you bring the whole brand in dispute.
coming from the Roman Catholic Church, being raised and actively involved in ministry for so long, it is a brand. And then moving over to the Anglican Church, it is a brand. And then coming to the Pentecostal Charismatic Church, it is also a brand. So living my religious life, I have experienced different brands. And now I've also experienced these different brands in different locations in the world. Like, it calls for an integral expression of your integrity.
Yes.
You need to, if you're a Pentecostal, you need to be a Pentecostal. You can't be like a half-baked Pentecostal. Like, if you're a Catholic, you must be who you say you are in some ways, because when you want to influence other people, they influenced and they are attracted to a brand. If you don't have brand recognition, if people don't know who to follow, if you don't have leadership in a team, everybody will simply do what they like, what they feel like on a specific day, because there's no moral integrity. The leader, the one who gives the flavor to the brand, doesn't know. So hence you need to be comfortable in your own skin. You need to, if you make a mistake, you need to own up to. If you go into the wrong direction, you need to have the integrity to come back. But you need a point of reference, and that's where many people and many brands fail, because they try to please so many people. So in the end, they don't even know who they are anymore.
Mantikoe, just on moral discipline, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we move to the moral attachment?
Well, let me just state that moral discipline is not about perfectionism. All it says is that, am I transparent enough to deal with my own weaknesses? And it also says, who do I need to have around me to safeguard me from myself? And that speaks to a leader with a good team.
So somebody that helps you, that keeps you accountable.
Yes.
To stay in your value system.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the person that keeps you accountable is actually there for your benefit.
Yes.
Because that will make you a good leader
100%.
and shows you the pitfalls.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty of moral discipline. It's any leadership. They say that leadership is power, but yet power reveals character. So you always have to understand who helped me to shape my character. In that dungeon, in that secret place, at home, who helps you to shape it? When you're sitting there studying for exams, who helps you to shape whether you're going to cheat or whether you're going to suffer through it and whether you're going to toil the night just to get it done? The person that stands accountable with you at that point, that's the person that you always attach the power dynamic to. You're always saying that leadership is power, but my power is shared, because it never solely relies in how I see the world, but it solely relies on who is holding my ladder. As Sam Chand would say, who is holding your ladder? The person who's holding my ladder gives me the ability to supersede my own strengths, because they place their potential, their loyalty, and their servitude in seeing a higher dimension of who I can become, and thus reflects on them and who they are in contribution to where we're headed.
Let's talk about moral attachment. So, so when we work through today's program, on face value, if you look at the word attachment, it's simply about who do you allow in your space, in your circle, and that circle will help you to establish who you are. The old people say, "Show me your friends, and I know who you are." It's like in South Africa, we truly have a moral attachment issue. So, Mantikoe, talk to us about moral attachment as in the context of leadership.
In the context of leadership, moral attachment is basically, in what I would call in economical terms, opportunity cost. What do I sacrifice for what I do? Sometimes a leader has to sacrifice themselves for the interests of the people. When we were growing up, as children, if you did something wrong, the people would ask, whose child is this? Even though they know whose child you are. But because of the fact that your moral attachment has separated you from who your family defines you as who you are. So that opportunity cost means that you are forsaking the lineage of who you are to engage in something that you're not. So in leadership, what it means is that when we have a tender that sits in front of us, who gets it? If we have a criterion that we have to follow, how well do we stick to it? Do we fudge it for the sake of a favorable nepotism or, my people, my folk? It's all about that. What is the opportunity cost in me being who I am on a daily basis? What is it that I do? Sometimes I noticed this yesterday. I went to the dealership and they quoted me for a part. And I was like, jeez. And the first thing that
I don't want to buy a new car.
No.
I just need a part.
I was like, I could go to We Buy Cars and get something. But in hindsight, already from the workshop, someone comes to me and already starts saying, no, don't worry. Don't worry. We got this. We got you. Take my number down. Give me a call. Already at that point in time, I'm facing a moral dilemma. What do I attach my value to? Do I attach my value to my integrity, or do I attach the value to getting what I need out of that situation? And that's what moral attachment is about. To say that in every situation that you face, it is always about where you place your value and your priorities. And that defines how you're going to act. Now, if you think about it from a leadership perspective, it speaks about where are we headed? Are we going to continue with the status quo because everyone believes that this is where we need to go? Or as a visionary, as the person that I am who's steering the ship, understands the climate and the landscape so well that I know that we need to be steering in this direction? Am I going to place value in having people support me in the status quo? Or am I going to suffer the short-term period of walking alone so that people will see that my integrity trumps over the needs of the interests of a selected few and benefits the collective that we are pushing towards? And that's where moral attachment is, because it's a small but very dodgy.
I just want to know, before you go, Father Ali, I just want to know around moral attachment. Do you think that that's the sickness and the illness of South Africa? Now, for where we sit on the other side watching TV, and you look at the top 6 now 7, and is there a moral attachment issue there for who people surround themselves with? Because if you look at when our president Cyril Ramaphosa was elected as president,
yes,
by the ANC,
yes,
at that point in time, all of us were so excited. Because my wife even said, "Oh, he's not going to steal because he's a billionaire, and billionaires don't steal." Exactly. Now, maybe in essence, it's not what he's doing, but is there a problem with his attachments, those that's around him, that let him look like a thief today, or somebody with weaknesses within leadership technique and style? What's your take on that, Mantikoe?
Hey, Doc, you're throwing me into the deep end.
I hope you're not going to lose a contract, yeah. But from face value, from looking from outside into this.
So all I can say, Doc, is if we had to bring it down to a leadership style, maybe let's start there. Looking at our current president, I would say he's more of a facilitative type of leader. He always tries to gain consensus. He never wants to rock the boat. He always wants to make sure that all sides are appeased, and that brings him into a bargaining space. He always bargains. And the reason I base this observation is on the cabinet reshuffle. We've seen symptoms, we've seen things pop up here and there, but the cabinet reshuffle, the long-awaited and anticipated directive leadership where it was supposed to be displayed, we were left baffled, because instead of bringing a convergence, in terms of leadership direction, he overinflated it. And we were sitting there asking ourselves, but why? And that for me gave me the credence to actually say that he's a facilitative type of leader. And a facilitative type of leader, if you look at that leadership style, it means that the person does not have, and allow me, if I may be free, but for those that are watching, this is not me. I don't want to lose a contract. It is a leader who lacks moral autonomy. It is a leader who doesn't have the backbone to stand on what he says. And that brings us to a fundamental leadership crisis, or a leadership deficit. Because what we are saying here is that the negative behavior that he displays outweighs the positive behavior. We may be saying it's a positive that he won't steal, but then it's another negative that in his positive stance, he's allowing other people to take center fold because he's always trying to appease everyone. He's never directive in terms of where we are headed. He's not directive in terms of where do we stand, and not directive in terms of what his vision is. And I think for that, it places us as a country in a very critical space where we really need to ask the questions, where to now?
And he doesn't keep people accountable. Father Ali.
Yeah.
I wouldn't venture into making any remarks on our president's leadership style, because I have a particular idea of what his style is. It's just a continuation of the man he was many years ago, the shop steward we know him as. And but I would like to take this back into personal leadership, saying that, like, yes, he owns all these things, and like he has all this money.
Yeah.
But still now, Phala Phala is center forward news, like millions of rand, hundreds of thousands of US dollars found in a couch. You know, where's the moral integrity? Where's his moral decision making going? So I would take this back to the normal Joe, ordinary Joe on the street. I'm saying we don't have to wait until we become presidents in order for us to stand behind what we believe in.
Correct.
To draw a line in the sand and say that, like, no, I don't want to be associated with this, even though the whole country is going this way. I'm still accountable to my moral authority. I will not do these things, because contrary to popular belief, what we have in South Africa now is I think it's not a president appeasing people. It's a president making decisions by not making decisions, and inflating his presidency by appointing ministers upon ministers, and you know, it's the same. Like in the church, I've always said that, like, stand by what you believe in, like stand for something or fall for everything, but there's one thing that I need to mention here is the lost art of feedback.
Yeah.
People don't want to have people say that, like, no, we don't like this about you, we don't like that about you. Feedback is what grows leaders. You need feedback, and you need to encourage feedback, and you need to incorporate feedback into how you are a leader. Listen to your team, listen to your country. Like, actually, when you have COVID in the country, have a press conference. Don't have a press conference where the press can actually ask you questions. Like, when Phala Phala is there, don't hide behind like parliamentary gimmicks. Come out and talk to people. Like, have people have their say. And otherwise, now we have to join some red berets and walk the streets and say, not Zuma must fall, not Mbeki must fall, but Matamela Ramaphosa must fall. I'm saying, listen to what your people are saying. Leaders out there in households, listen to what your children are saying. You know, in the boardroom, listen to what your team is saying. and take it under advisement. Get like accountability partners, like listen to what's happening, because then you become insulated, like our president, who doesn't, I don't think he knows what it means for so many people being poor in our country, so many people being out of jobs in our country. I don't think our president has suffered for anything like in the last 50 years of his like he doesn't know what it means to be poor. He doesn't know what it means when 70% of young people are out of jobs. Yes, he talks a good talk, but like what do they do? Do they really listen to what the people are saying? And that is what it means to respect feedback and to listen to your constituents. And I don't think we're there. I don't think.
So you completely fail on moral attachment. It's around who's surrounding you. Are you doing a favor for this one and a favor for that one, breaking this down? And in church circles or in any other form, in CEO circles, how does moral attachment work precisely?
So, it's all about bargaining, Rev. A CEO also has to understand the leadership dynamics within his own immediate team. He understands, the art of communication. He understands, how well and how versed they are in their sphere of influence. And if leadership is all about influence, then if I don't have a legitimate influence, I need to bargain for that influence. And sometimes that's the bad side of leadership. That sometimes we have to understand the opportunity cost. Why is it that I'm doing what I'm doing, and for what reason? Is this sacrifice for beneficial good or not?
Yeah. Can I use a simple illustration? In the circles that I move around, I see people in podiums that doesn't belong in podiums. They only have deep pockets. So the pastor struggles, and they place people with deep pockets in podiums. Does that fall under moral attachment? In
Correct.
spite of the harm to the broader organization, they bend towards the person with the deep pockets. You can almost say the deep pockets runs the church, for that matter. I know of somebody that was boasting about it. Somebody gave him a boot full of money. It's like a pastor, boot full of money. That's moral attachment. It's like, where does that money come from? And you can be proud about that money. Where does it come from? So there's this. It's almost if you let go of the brand Jesus Christ at the cost of your attachment.
Yes.
So then also dirty money. That's attachments, isn't it so? So leadership stands and falls on all these things.
Correct. And it's a very challenging one, because if you're looking at the brand, you associate a value to a brand. Now, when you associate value to your brand, the question becomes, do I allow my brand to fall, knowing the potential that the brand holds? You understand the brand of Jesus Christ. You want to get the message out there. But now you are facing a situation where someone says, I will get you there, but my way, not his way, not Jesus' way. That's moral attachment, because Lord, I need this now. What we can do with this for the church, for the ministry, but the question still lies at the center of, are you serving your own self-interest, or are you serving the interests of the collective?
For those watching out there, we're talking about moral discipline. It's about leadership technique and styles. We're talking about moral attachment, but I want to get to moral autonomy. And if we talk about moral autonomy, you look at South Africa, has some of the best policies in government and in the economic space, and a large deposit of mineral wealth. And South Africa is really flying. But if you look at unemployment and in the inequalities that you see in not just here in Gauteng and around us, in your opinion, would you agree that the direction in which the country move can be attributed to a deficit of leadership, specifically in the light of moral autonomy. But maybe you first have to kind of give us a definition on moral autonomy.
Moral autonomy in its simplest form for me is, as a father of the house, what is your leadership style? What do you believe is the vision? What do you believe is the purpose? And where is your family headed? That is moral autonomy, because what you are saying is, I'm taking influences from my experiences, from what I have learned and studied, and I'm putting it all together as a hybrid that works for me. So you're taking the good things that you've observed around the world, the experiences, you're taking the bad things, and you're putting them together, and you're saying that this is the model that I want to influence my home with. And moral autonomy in terms of leadership says that there might be many models out there, but what works best for me? What is it that I'm more comfortable with? What is it that my style of leading is? And also it says, once I have that, what is my vision and how do I stand for it? How do I articulate it? How do I shape it? How do I live it out? How do I influence the people that are around me so that we move in one direction? So moral autonomy is saying I'm moving away from where everyone else is headed. And I'm changing direction for what works for me.
Yeah.
And if we have to bring that in terms of leadership, it's very hard to have moral autonomy, especially in the type of government that we have. From national all the way to local, especially with this multi-party coalition. Because then the question becomes, what is the moral voice that defines how the collective moves? And these collective have different interests. And that begins to be, that starts to become the starting point of how we venture into moral autonomy. Moral autonomy says spread a vision so well, articulate it so good that people have to buy into it. They willfully offer themselves, their strength, their skills, their talents to jump on board with it. And we might take an example of how the council sitting in Pretoria decided to vote, where some people went against a party interest, a party message, and decided to vote whether in true essence of their own heart and beliefs, or they were motivated by other things. But that speaks to that moral autonomy, that as a leader, whether national, local, or provincial, you need to have the moral autonomy to not to dictate, but to define the vision of what you are going to achieve. And that's sometimes defined by when a mayor gets into position, they always say, what are you going to do for the first 100 days? What is your vision for the first 100 days?
And sometimes it's only the first 100 days.
And then it just wavers away. Yeah.
Look, I want our producer to bring the picture up of Dubai in 1991 and then also the Dubai in 2017. So for those that's watching out there, look at 1991, the vision of Dubai, literally desert. And then how they turn it in a short period around between that year to 2017, and for what we see these days in Dubai. Now, that's just Dubai. There's another picture that I want the viewers to see, is the picture of Singapore in 1976. A picture of Singapore. It will come on your screen just now in 1976, and then also a picture of Singapore in 2015. Come, I tell you why I'm laughing now. I tell you, I'm having fun with this. The reason why I'm laughing is, like, if you have to take South Africa in 1994 and you take South Africa in 2023, look, it's the opposite. And everything stands and falls on leadership. So clearly, somebody somewhere in the world is surely doing something right. Somewhere, somehow. Now, Father Ali, if you look at Dubai, Mr. What? How do you
Mohammed bin
Muhammad
Rashid.
Yeah. Talk about his technique and style.
No, he's the son. His father in the 50s. Now everybody wants to go to Dubai except me. Everybody wants to go to Dubai and like live the 7-star hotel life in the Burj Al Arab, the highest, the tallest building that is actually just a hotel. Like the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa. I don't know the spelling, the pronunciation, but like they've created almost this magical world literally out of dust. Dubai was just like South Africa, just like Singapore, like a halfway station on the way to India. And they in the 60s they discovered oil in Dubai. But now everybody's saying no, Dubai has oil. Dubai doesn't have as much oil as Abu Dhabi has. But who talks about Abu Dhabi? Everybody talks about Dubai. Dubai now is like everybody literally wants to go and have a piece of land in Dubai because the current leader of Dubai, he says that his father created this opportunity for people to come and own land in Dubai. Foreigners can own land in Dubai. They don't pay tax in Dubai. They've established trade-free zones. They've streamlined your opening up a business and making business in Dubai is so easy. That's why all the big banks are there. All the big financial institutions are in Dubai. But Dubai was not built on oil. Dubai was built on a vision. And yes, I know that Dubai, they have their own problems. Now they say people are overworked in Dubai, people are burned out in Dubai, like they don't have the best human rights record in the world. They have too many foreigners working there, the situation in which the foreigners find themselves there. Like I've flown through Dubai a few times because they have the largest airport by transits. So many people come in and through Dubai. The same with Singapore. But like, look at Dubai. They don't have gold. They don't have diamonds. They don't have platinum. They have some oil. But they've decided, the father of the current leader of Dubai decided that we're not going to build our future on oil. We're going to build it on this vision that Dubai is going to be the showpiece for the world to see. And we can all see that what happens in Dubai now is like just like everything happens in Dubai. And nothing happens in South Africa.
Visionary leadership. No doubt about that. So if you look at the moral autonomy again around that, you take Dubai and Singapore as typical examples.
Yeah.
What's wrong in South Africa if you look at that model? A lack of vision, a lack of money, a lack of minerals, a lack of... What is it? It's clear that everything stands and falls on leadership.
Correct. I think for me, if we have to boil it down, it speaks to courage. If we have to unpack that, it says that we need a leader who dares to be authentic. We need a voice that is authentic, meaning we need a leader who's able to craft, define what our future state looks like, clearly to such a point that we can all buy into it. And that's what happened with Dubai. The vision never changed. The vision was very simple. Dubai leads, the world follows. Very simple, very articulate, straight to the point. That's what we want. Number two, we need a leader who dares to be audacious. And the reason why I say audacious is because taking that route, you defy many things. You change course. You pull a 180 on us. Projects will fail. Tenders will be closed off. The tap will literally be closed out. And that will mean a whole lot, or rather, that will require a whole lot of moral discipline to stand and decide that this is where we're headed. Then the third one, just to close it off, is that we need a leader who dares to aspire. We need a leader who is able to advocate.
I must just say on that one point.
Yeah.
When I look at my leader, the president, he
Yes.
looks depressed constantly.
He's
There's
not
nothing
sleeping
in him.
well.
There's no spark in his eyes. There's nothing that lets you feel when you watch him.
Yeah.
That yes, there's hope in South Africa. Even if he assigns somebody on, it's like he's always depressed. He's hanging. He's like, there's no zeal. There's no vision within him, and South Africa surely needs strong visionary leadership if we really want to make it out of this pit, out of this economic pit,
Yes.
out of what's happening in this country currently.
Yes.
We need strong moral autonomy.
100%. We don't need a leader who's looking for an iPad. We need a leader that when the iPad is not there, he can speak from the heart. He can articulate himself so well in that the paper does not become the vision. The man is the vision. And that's where you're saying that we cannot attach any form of authenticity when he speaks, because he himself lacks the conviction of a vision that he's following. And that doesn't aspire us at all. That's why we can have family meetings and we are so used to the fact that we can never ask questions. We're used to it.
Can I tell you, before you go further, Ali, can I tell you how hard it is to make a decision on who to vote for? Because when you look at leadership, you're not sure.
Yeah.
You're not sure what you're going to vote in. On the one side, I'm not going to mention names, you have a political party that looks violent. It is almost as if there's going to be a revolution. Tomorrow morning when you get up, there's going to be blood in the streets and AK-47s running. That's the impression of the leadership technique and style.
Yeah.
Not that there's vision with it. And then you find another vision that's apologetic on, others piggyback on potholes and other people. For where you stand, you don't know, literally don't know who to vote for.
And the secret with moral autonomy is the word autonomy means that it runs by itself, self-driven. Like autonomy means that you are free to choose what kind of character you want to expose, what character you want to practice. Now, how free are you really? Like let's look at South Africa. Let's look at with the highest ever recorded unemployment rate in the world, the astronomical youth unemployment. Like, how free are people? So when you make a choice, like simple, as a husband, as a wife, as a child, as a young person, how free are you really? In South Africa, where we have the highest Gini coefficient in the world, where we are the most lopsided people, I think, I'm not good with numbers, but it's 10% of the people in South Africa owns 80% of the wealth of the country, and the other 90 owns 20%. So how free are people really? It's earlier we were talking, and when you go for a march, you get into a bus or into a provided transport and get a T-shirt and get a promise of lunch, and you go. If it's close to voting time, all the gogos in the village get a kiss by from the president, and it's how free are you really to vote?
Yeah.
How much moral autonomy do you have? Because a plan is as good as the first obstacle. You may sit there in your room and say, no, I'm gonna vote X. And then, tomorrow you wake up hungry, and the next day you wake up your bond is being recalled. You need to make a choice with so little freedom. We've actually in this country, we have no shortage of leadership lineage. We have Nobel Peace Prize laureates in South Africa, coming from my revered leader, Chief Albert Lutuli, all the way to Mr. de Klerk. But I'm saying, how free are we? Like for instance, in Singapore, you take Singapore, people get paid the best in Singapore. Like 85% of people live in government subsidized housing in Singapore.
And they were just the other day within slums.
In the 60s, like late 50s, they had the biggest slum population in the world. People lived in slums. Like we call them cuckoos. They floating cities. They were living on the water, like on like substandard housing. Like you never know. But now everybody wants to go to Dubai. Everybody wants to go to Singapore because like. You rich, you live well.
But what's exactly the point that we're driving today? What's the difference? Because everything stands and falls on leadership. It's like the one person, how you lead and conduct yourself. This guy got a matric, that guy got a matric. This guy makes something of his life, that guy doesn't make something of his life. This guy sit on the corner of a street, that guy get up and go sell a bag of potatoes. How you conduct and lead yourself, how you conduct and lead the country, how you conduct and lead, everything stands and falls on leadership. And what's boggling me is like, if you look at South Africa, why would you, one well-known, I'm not going to mention his name again, one well-known person that's a motivational speaker, he's one of the richest motivational speakers in South Africa. He said that, why do we vote for people who knows how to fill stadiums with T-shirts and food? And why do we vote for people that make empty promises? Why? I mean, are we so blind that every year we go to the polls and vote somebody into a position that's running this country into the ground? Literally, the reversal of Singapore and the reversal of Dubai. For us, is the other way around. We're going backwards. And it's not difficult to see there's a lack in leadership. If you look at the electricity, somebody like the Reiter who revealed stuff. Now the Reiter is the enemy. It's like, I mean, for God's sake. And they just turn stuff around. There's a huge leadership problem in South Africa. And I tell you, there is a need of moral autonomy. There's a need for conviction. There's a need for somebody that could take South Africa and lead us, because I guess everybody is now sick and tired. Now, the church in general needs a leader, because there was a time that we had a leader, like in the Desmond Tutus. We had a leader like in the Ellen Busacks. Those were strong leaders, and they were really leading the church. And we at any point in time could rally behind them. And that's why the church at one point was a great voice. If you take the church today, and what they call the sacred hour, if everybody goes on church and we count everybody, if you say South Africa, if you say we are 80% Christians, then consider this. Which means we can vote in the morning another president into place. Because you just need X amount of votes to vote everybody out. And if Christians can just at some point realize the power they have, which means people come to Crystal Church, another one goes to a Catholic church, another one goes to an Anglican church, another one goes to a Pentecostal church, another one goes to a charismatic church, another one goes to the evangelicals, another one goes to the full gospels, another. Take all that people, if it's 10 in a room, if it's thousands in a room, if it's an independent church or not, collectively, just here in South Africa, during the sacred hour, the power that the church have to change the course of South Africa based on leadership. That's most probably the cry for today. We should look at the ethical aspects, the moral aspects of leadership in discipline, in attachments, and in autonomy. Now, can you believe it that we're almost done? Do you have closing remarks for us?
My closing remarks are simple. They say that a leader is not what they say, it's what they consistently do. And I think it's time that, the viewers at home and everyone at large starts looking out for those leaders, because that's where we identify the potential of how or who can take the society forward. The second part for me is that we are all leaders in every right. We are leaders of selves, we are leaders of others, and we are leaders of leaders. You know, we need to start operating in that form of our leadership. We need to start taking a stand and leading from the front. The reason why we are so relaxed is we've always entrusted someone else to lead on our behalf. And I believe it's time for us as individuals to start taking back that power and start exercising that power. And the more we become a woke generation, and we start understanding our rights and the fundamentals behind it, we can start exercising it in the right way. And together as a collective, we have the power to change the narrative of South Africa. But it only begins with us. It does not need the majority. It needs you at home. It needs you in the taxi. It needs you at the workplace. It needs you in the kitchen. It needs you at the car park. It needs you, and it ends with you.
Father Ali?
Yeah, I've always said that, like, you are first of all a leader of yourself. You need to lead yourself. Then you need to lead and influence the people and the organizations that you belong to. But I don't know how apt this would be. But in the last instance, all I'm gonna say is, like, when we started to when we did theology, we had to choose to go to like one of these support groups. So I chose the AA. And the first thing that we used to do at the AA is, like, one of the foundational step at the AA is to admit that you have a problem. I think that in South Africa, we need to admit that we have a problem with leadership. In the church, we have a problem with leadership. In our societies, in our municipalities, in our book clubs, in our stockfields, everywhere, we need to look at how we are leaders, how we understand leadership, how we understand morality in leadership. Because Dubai, they're not a democracy. Singapore, they're not a democracy. Democracy, long ago, we thought it's the best form of government, best philosophy, but it's not really. It comes down to your vision for yourself, for your family, for your community, for your church, for your different organizations, and ultimately for your country. Because yes, South Africa, we are an angry nation, but let's be angry at the right people. Let's start being angry at the right things. In the right forum, so that our anger can be challenged into something that is good, actually. Yeah.
The truth around leadership is simply this: if you don't stand up and being the best you in the leadership God called you to be, somebody else will lead you. There's no doubt about that. The problem that we have, if it's in church, the problem that we have if it's in the private sector, the problem that we have if it's in the political arena, is like we allow the good is not raising their voices, like in the church circles. For those who allowed people to drink petrol, for those who allowed people to eat grass, for those who had fake miracles like Ilios come up, we allow fake people to lead us, because the good leaders are critical. They sit behind the desk, behind the TV. They have opinion about everything, but they don't put themselves out there, because it takes a lot of flag. It takes a lot of attack and criticism out there to stand as a leader. So the call is, arise, come up, be the best leader that you can be. From me to you, this is the Inside Show. I would love you, please, if you don't mind, just to subscribe and hit that bell. Every single time when we're on, you will know. From Carl Hendricks and the team here in the studio today, you have a super wonderful day. I love you, but God loves you best. You take care.
Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team. Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months.
This morning is all about leadership and influence.